Let's take a look at the England U21 starting 11 for their semi-final defeat against Holland in 2007. Let's see if any of them have actually gone on to have half-decent careers, because most of them were actually tipped for big things. But lads, Matt Derbyshire and James Vaughan were in that squad. Scott Carson. Back in June 2007, the future looked so bright for Scott Carson. He might have been playing in a competition for kids that summer, but this was a man who already had a Champions League medal in his pocket. Admittedly, he had about as much influence in Istanbul as you or I did, but still, sadly for Carson, within a few months his international career was practically flatlining after conceding 3 goals against Croatia at Wembley as England failed to qualify for Euro 2008. As far as auditions go, it was like a struggling actor just got sick all over the director's face. Since then he's bounced between divisions, with Aston Villa, West Brom, a curious spell at Bursaspor, Wigan, and is now currently wondering what on earth Derby County have to do to get promoted. Justin Hoyte. Back in 2007, Justin Hoyte was an up and coming right back at Arsenal whose confidence was practically stuffed down the toilet after finishing rock bottom of the league with Sunderland during a dire loan spell. He went on to spend 6 uninspired seasons with Middlesbrough, a couple with Millwall, hopefully nobody punctured his car, then Dagenham at Redbridge, and now at the age of 33 he's currently at FC Cincinnati in the US, where he gets to play with the footballing powerhouses that are Emmanuel Ledesma and Shola Miobi's brother. Lads, when Sammy isn't the worst footballer in that family, good lord. Stephen Taylor. Stephen Taylor was heroic in this game. The Newcastle defender battled on with injury and scored a pressurising penalty. Then again, considering there were 25 spot kicks, it's not like he had much choice but to take one. Taylor had begun his Newcastle career looking like a clown, prone to acting as if he'd been pierced by a sniper from the crowd, but over time he slowly started to build a reputation as a promising young centre half. Sure wasn't he keeping Gary Cahill stuck on the bench during this tournament. He never did get that senior cap though, and injuries effectively swallowed his potential whole. 2 years ago he couldn't even make it on the bench at Portland Timbers. He's currently trying to convince the world he still has it at Peterborough United at 32 years of age. Spoilers, he doesn't. Nedim Onuoha. That Manchester City takeover was the worst thing to happen to this young man. Nedim Onuoha was never going to last long at that club once they won the lottery. The irony is, before Sheikh Mansour showed his face in Manchester, Onuoha was one of the club's most valuable players. Practically overnight, he was suddenly viewed as a little more than wet toilet paper. He took in a relatively successful spell at Sunderland and has just announced he'll be leaving QPR after 6.5 years at the club. Come on Nedim, are you sure you don't want to spend a season listening to Steve McLaren's words of wisdom? Leighton Baines. Finally a player on this list who's actually gone on to have a good international career. Leighton Baines ended up signing for Everton in the summer of 2007. Despite Roy Keane pestering him to join Sunderland for months, the prospect of lining out in a defence consisting of Paul McShane and Nyron Nosworthy would probably be enough to induce extreme anxiety. He spent the last 11 years at Goodison Park and has been capped 30 times by his country. James Milner. It's funny, considering he started playing so young, by the time 2007 rolled around, the man felt like a veteran. It was almost like he was that weird undercover 40-year-old man turning up to sit his GCSEs with skinny jeans and a baseball cap on backwards, desperately trying to fit in. Like he'd been playing Premier League football for 5 years, he'd already played for 4 clubs, he was a key player for Newcastle. This lad didn't feel like a young gun. Since then, he's got the big money moves to Aston Villa and Man City, where he won a bunch of trophies. He moved to Liverpool to play in midfield, and Jurgen Klopp rewarded his honesty with a role at left back. Milner probably spent that season trying to drown his sorrows by mainlining Ribena into his veins, but he's playing midfield these days, excelling, and who knows, like Carson he could win a Champions League for Liverpool, but unlike Carson he could actually contribute in some way other than picking his nose on the bench. Nigel Reo-Coker, what happened to him? Was it injuries? Because this man was supposed to be a superstar. Having broke through at Wimbledon, he was a star for West Ham before Aston Villa swooped in 2007. There he rivaled Steve Sidwell for who could have the least amount of impact on a football pitch, before getting relegated with Bolton. Then it was non-existent spells at Ipswich, Vancouver Whitecaps, Chivas USA, Montreal Impact, where Didier Drogba probably made him wash his car, and now MK Dons at 34. What a wasted career. Mark Noble. In 2007, Mark Noble had just come off the back of a tumultuous season where West Ham had just about stayed up by the skin of their teeth. 11 years later, what has changed? Seriously. Ashley Young. Arguably the player on this list with the best career full stop. In 2007, Ashley Young was 6 months into his Aston Villa career. He was one of the Premier League's most exciting wingers. Since then, he's enjoyed 4.5 terrific seasons at Villa Park, arrived at Man United, and Jesus, how would you sum up his time there? Right, if we were to judge him on arriving as a £25 million winger, which is what he was bought as, at a time when Sir Alex passed on Alexis Sanchez, then you'd have to say what a disappointment. 13 goals in 150 league games? Christ. But on the other hand, fair play to Young. There's been at least 4 times when his United career looked dead, buried, and ready for the maggots, only for him to blink himself awake. At the moment, he's keeping a £30 million left back out of the team and has forced himself into the England squad, despite their golden boy having told him to retire a few months ago. Bit awkward now, Daddy. David Nugent. And now we're back down to earth. David Nugent's England career was a farce. He came on against Andorra, and with Jermaine Defoe's strike rolling over the line, the Preston striker came in to slam it home and claim it. No wonder he wasn't invited back into the squad again. He's a championship player. I think this was epitomised in the summer of 2007 when Harry Redknapp paid £6 million to bring him to Portsmouth, and then after 6 training sessions was actually willing to sell him to Derby County. He didn't go, stuck around and flopped at Fratton Park instead, with Defoe no doubt pointing and laughing at him stuck on the bench, with Nugent having to wait to end up at Derby 11 years later. Here's the weird thing though, despite having scored just 14 goals in 93 Premier League games, he might have actually ended up with a winner's medal if he stuck it out at Leicester for 9 more months. Leroy Lita. Well, this was just embarrassing. Leroy Lita had just netted 14 goals for Reading the previous season. That was about as good as I got for his career. 2 months after the tournament, he injured himself waking up in bed, seriously, before floating around Charlton and Norwich for a bit, before doing okay at Middlesbrough, if okay is juggling a 1 of 4 scoring average with getting arrested on nights out. He's been a journeyman ever since. You probably won't have noticed him sneaking back into the Premier League with Swansea for a bit. He left Highland club Sissaket FC in September and has presumably been weeping over his failed career ever since.